So here on the main.dart I have deleted everything. I have created a new stateless widget where I use the material app, scaffold, and the center widget to center this text here, as you can see here. And inside this text, I print a simple variable, an integer called some number that I define right here. And yeah, it is really simple. I print this text with some number and this variable here. And then I have defined the up bar, that it is this bar here, with a list of actions that contains for now the icon button with this icon, that it is this button here. And when it is pressed, it prints yo on the console. So if we press it, it will print yo. So it is really easy and simple file. So right now we want to take a look at the most easy of providers that Riverpod offers us. And basically the reason why provider offer us multiple Riverpod offer us multiple providers is because they work in many ways, and they have different reasons why we should use one or another. There are some that can be used for more complex scenarios and some for more easy ones. So the first thing that we should do to start using Riverpod and to start defining our providers is to import, in our case, the Flutter Riverpod package. So we do this Riverpod easily by calling it, so we don't have to call anything from it. We just import the entire Riverpod file, and yeah. So right now we can use our Flutter Riverpod, and the first thing that we should do, that is really important to use it, is to wrap our application with provider scope. So basically provider scope do all the magic for us. It is not like the previous package that that was provider, that we had to specify the many providers that we had, and if we had multiple ones, we had to use we had to define them all. In this case, we don't have to do all these things. We just have to wrap our application, our main widget with provider scope. So we can delete this here, and we can type provider scope and then child and call our application, our widget, sorry. Here once const, because for the linter. So okay, let's save, and now we can use our provider, because by defining this we say that the entire root widget, in the entire root widget we want to use providers. I think that if you want to use provider only of some part of your application, you can define the provider scope on that part. So in our case, we are going to use it on the root, and yeah. So for provider, provider is the most easy of all the providers that we have. So providers are defined globally, but you should not worry, because they are immutable, as it says in the documentation. And for example, it makes the example that defining providers globally, it is like defining functions. So you should not worry about this problem. So to define it globally, we just have to define a global variable. So for example, my provider, and then we can call provider, that, as I said, is the most simple one, and it has a ref parameter, and we should return our the thing that we want. So this is the type that of provider that we are defining. As I said, is the most simple one. It has no state, so 0 remains 0. You cannot change it. And there are some use cases where you maybe want this type of value that doesn't change, and ref is used to access other providers, for example, and has informations about providers. And now, inshallah, in a moment, we are going to see how ref works. So yes, now if we want to call my provider, we will get this value here because it is the value that we have defined. So we are not forced to define the type of value that we are returning, and you can return simple values, for example, like integer or string. It is not like the previous package provider that you had to define a special type